This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on budget provisions for reaching the last mile and leaving no citizen behind. The participants are Saurabh Rishi, Senior Specialist, Niti Aayog, and Omvesh Upadhyay, AIR Correspondent.
The Aspirational Block Program was launched during the second National Conference of Chief Secretaries, which was held in January this year. Aspirational Block Program (ABP) is aimed at improving performance of blocks lagging on various development parameters. The Aspirational Blocks Program is on the lines of Aspirational District Program that was launched in 2018. The template is now being used by the central government and states to identify backward blocks and use similar data monitoring and competition-based programs to improve the most underdeveloped blocks in the country. And to discuss on the aspirational district as well as the block program in detail, we are joined by Mr. Saurabh Rishi, Senior Specialist, Aspirational District Program. Welcome, Mr. Rishi.
Thank you so much.
To begin the discussion, I would like to know that this year's Union Budget is seen as the development budget of Amrit Kal and sought to bring inclusivity. What new boost it had generated for Aspirational District and Block Program, and is there any special provision or allocation for this in this budget?
So one thing that I want to point out here is that both these programs, the Aspirational Districts Program and the Aspirational Blocks Program, they are not schemes in themselves, but rather they are programs to fast-track development at the grassroots level. So in that sense, while various line ministries, various central ministries have budget line items, these are templates for good governance. Although there is some additional allocation for incentivizing performance or also to meet critical gaps in service delivery which are not covered under other schemes, these programs are also prioritized by the respective ministries. So various ministries prioritize service delivery in these aspirational districts and aspirational blocks. So in that sense, these programs differ from a particular scheme, but they are essentially programs to fast-track governance at the grassroots level.
You very rightly pointed out that it's a template, more importantly, not a scheme in itself. And today, even Prime Minister Modi was broadly talking about this in the webinar that was themed on reaching the last mile. Mr. Rishi, what could we decipher from the address? What's your view on this?
We heard the address from Honorable Prime Minister this morning. If you see, today's session was broadly revolving around leaving no citizen behind and reaching the last mile. So the sessions that were planned today, whether it's Aspirational Districts Program, Aspirational Blocks Program, or whether it's programs for tribal population or for poor prisoners, and many such programs that were discussed today, were all programs that incentivize working at the grassroots level. So in that sense, what Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned that the Aspirational Blocks Program has been launched following the success of the Aspirational Districts template. And what the program does, it takes the decision making closer to the grassroots level. It also, the rationale behind developing this program is basically that we have seen that while the districts have improved on various parameters, but what happens more often than not is that there lies variation between the districts itself. Some of these districts are larger than many European countries in terms of even whether it's the area or whether it's the population size. So in that case, a one-size-fits-all approach cannot be applied to the blocks. It requires a monitoring which is closer to the grassroots level, and that's why these block programs have been launched. And this is what the Honorable Prime Minister also wants, that these templates are adopted, what was successful in the Aspirational District template, and the same template be applied at the block level.
So for any program to be successful and to be replicated vice versa, it is very important for constant monitoring for achieving the desired goals. So could you please tell us about the significance, why it is needed to be constantly monitored?
To put it simply, what gets measured gets improved. That's the basis behind having a constant monitoring mechanism. And as we go closer to the grassroots level, what we have seen even with the Aspirational Districts template is, firstly, constant monitoring acts as a continuous motivation to the district officials or the block officials to constantly monitor the service delivery, the performance in improvement, and these aspects help in incentivizing service delivery on a constant basis. So the delta ranking that we have in the aspirational districts, which we also plan to implement in the blocks program, helps to incentivize improvement in these indicators over a period of time. So if we were to monitor just the districts in terms of what levels of saturation they are, then it's only the more developed blocks that will always be on top. But in order to motivate the blocks which are at the bottom, so this constant monitoring helps not only to improve service delivery, but it also acts as a motivation to the district officials to improve their performance.
Rishiji, without a doubt, today we can say that the aspirational district program has emerged as a successful model in terms of reaching the last mile. Taking this approach further, an aspirational block program is now planned, if I'm not wrong, in 500 blocks of the country. So, Rishiji, how significant the ABP is and how it will strengthen even the smallest pockets?
If you see the distribution of the blocks, right, initially our aim was to at least roll out in 500 blocks. Many states had already taken some early initiatives in rolling out the block program. But in order to ensure that there is representation from all states and union territories, we wanted to ensure there is representation from all of them. And most of these blocks are in the most underdeveloped parts of the country. Some would have been left out due to geographical challenges or due to challenges in ensuring last mile connectivity, or have been left out of the economic development. So the idea is to ensure that no citizen is left behind in these areas. And we believe that if we improve the social development parameters, eventually it will lead to economic development as well. So when a citizen is healthy, a citizen is well educated, and a citizen is well skilled, it automatically improves the overall economy of not only the block, the state, but even the country.
Rishiji, aspirational block program is based on the aspirational district program. Will we also see the same model of convergence and collaboration in ABP as well?
Definitely. We call it the 3 C's. We call it convergence of schemes at the central level or at the state level, at the district level. The collaboration is between Team India, that is center, the states, the district and the block administration. We also collaborate with development partners, civil society organizations and non-government organizations that work together with the district administration. And the last C is obviously competition, the monitoring aspect that we spoke about. These 3 C's will be seen in the ABP as well. We aim to improvise on the learnings from the Aspirational Districts program and use it to further strengthen the Aspirational Blocks program.
Could you please also tell about the significance of these 3 C's and how they help you to have a more derived form of a successful development in the blocks?
These obviously play a very important role. Traditionally, if it seems the center, while defining any scheme, is very distant from what is happening at the ground level. So when we say convergence, what we are saying is that the district official or the block official is actually working with all the departments together. That also nudges the district administration to work in a slightly different way from the traditional ways of working. That is, a district administration, if we see, the primary role was more in terms of law and order and revenue. But now what we are seeing is that while initially the district and the block departments were vertically aligned to the state departments and the central ministries, now we are seeing a horizontal collaboration, a cross-departmental review, collaboration between departments, a collaboration between schemes. Basically what we are trying to do is focus on indicators that are input-oriented, output-oriented and outcome-oriented. So irrespective of the scheme, we try to map what are the various schemes that would lead to an improvement in a particular outcome. So in that ways, these 3 C's are not disjoint, but in fact they work together to achieve the desired outcomes.
You mentioned about generating a healthy competitive spirit among the blocks. So what parameters the ranking will be done to mark the progress and inclusive development done by these respective blocks?
The choice of indicators are obviously a subset of the indicators that we had under the Aspirational Districts program. We wanted to choose indicators that are relevant at block level. Firstly, the data should be available, and secondly, the district or the block administration should be able to make an impact on these indicators. So hence the indicators were decided. Obviously the focus areas remain more or less the same in terms of the priority areas are health and nutrition, education, agriculture and water resources, financial inclusion, skill development and basic infrastructure. To give you a snapshot, the health indicators would cover pregnant women care, child nutrition, child immunization, health infrastructure. So these are the core indicators that we have chosen under health and nutrition. Under education, it is again transition rates, learning outcomes. We have had learning loss during the pandemic, so how do we cover for that? And school infrastructure and basic sanitation facilities for girl children in schools and pupil-teacher ratio. And similarly in other themes as well, basic infrastructure captures electricity, housing, water facilities, roads, internet connectivity, so on and so forth. In a nutshell, basically, these indicators are designed in a way that we can measure what inputs and processes are leading to certain outputs and outcomes. And one important facet of this program is the sharing of innovative best practices. I want to highlight that. Many a time we are tied with what the scheme funds or the scheme guidelines say. But what we have seen in the aspirational districts, and we hope that it continues in the block program as well, it is the officers on ground, it is the staff on ground, it's the block officials, it's the district administration, which sometimes come up with very innovative best practices that in fact are able to transform or improve outcomes on the ground. And we look forward to that, and we try to replicate those best practices in other districts. So this is how the peer learning has helped the aspirational districts program, and we hope that it works in the aspirational blocks program as well, that this kind of peer learning and in terms of initiating best practices is replicated across various block officials, learning from each other across states with similar challenges on the ground, whether it's geographical or economic. The theme for today's webinar was leaving no one behind, and that means reaching the last mile. So the focus is also on not only certain geographical pockets of underdevelopment, but also certain communities or certain marginalized communities which are left out from the development, such as tribal population and so on and so forth, particularly vulnerable tribal groups.
Rishi, you mentioned about insightful information from the ground staff and that how it helped to transform the whole program in ways and at times. So I also want to know that since it is a program on block level, so how the hierarchy goes all the way from Niti Aayog and then to block level. Are there any nodal offices in block level, district level? Who are the responsible people in the chain?
It does not disturb the existing hierarchy of how the district or block or state administration works. But what this program tries to achieve is strengthening the implementation on ground. So in that sense, the block development officer is of course the most important officer in this program. He nevertheless is supported by all the departments at the block level, the district magistrate or the district collector, and of course the state level support that is required. So in terms of hierarchy, Niti Aayog's role is more in terms of identifying the framework, identifying the guidelines, the monitoring framework, the methodology of ranking, and ensuring that the best practices are shared across the blocks, ensuring that working with the line ministries to prepare the respective action plans that can be prioritized in these blocks, working with the state departments to identify or nominate Prabhari officers, a senior level Prabhari officers that know the geography and the challenges in the particular block and guide and support the block. So in that sense, it is again focusing on the 3 C's and not changing the existing hierarchy that exists at the grassroots level.
So Rishiji, as per now, ABP will cover around 500 blocks across 31 states with over half of these blocks located in 6 states only. Is there any planning of expanding the horizon in terms of including more blocks? If you can answer in short.
If we were just to identify the most backward blocks in the country, so it would be only from a particular region. And the idea while selecting the blocks was that there is representation from all states and union territories. And the idea is that obviously there would be more developed states and union territories. Even in those states, there could be some pockets of underdevelopment. And that was the idea, to have a representation, a distribution, so that all the states and union territories come together working on this program. Secondly, as asked by you, this program acts as a template. And this is a vision of Honorable Prime Minister as well. We have seen that many states have gone behind the list of selected blocks and have already rolled out their respective blocks program. For example, Uttar Pradesh already have started their blocks program in 100 blocks. We have Madhya Pradesh as well, and similar examples in Jammu and Kashmir and Tripura. And they go over and beyond just these 500 blocks. The idea is to replicate this template as good governance across the blocks. And states are the main drivers of this program. Entirely their wish that they use this template and increase the coverage of.
So in short, we can conclude that states can include more blocks in future if needed.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us on All India Radio.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on budget provisions for reaching the last mile and leaving no citizen behind. The participants were Saurabh Rishi, Senior Specialist, Niti Aayog, and Omvesh Upadhyay, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.